If you're gessoing individual sheets that you've cut out from a larger sheet or torn from a pad, you will definitely need to tape the paper down to a panel before gessoing. I like to use a masonite panel, or in this case, a canvas panel. With the canvas panel, the tape won't stick to the canvas side, so there's no worry about tearing the board. So you'll want to tape all around every side about 1/4 of an inch in. Then you're ready to gesso. You'll want to use a good sized 2 to 3 inch brush, like this fine bristled house painting brush. You can also use a quality art brush if it's got fine enough bristles. 1 coat of gesso is adequate if you use a very healthy coat, and this is important. By healthy, I don't mean a big, gloppy, runny coat of gesso. I mean a coat that is very well worked into the fibers of the paper. Now what I've just done is not enough. I need to work it in further, back and forth, so that the gesso is really getting into the fibers of the paper. It's easy to skip a spot when you do this. So double check that you're covering every square inch as you go. Back and forth. And you'll be able to see if you are putting the gesso down too thickly, because the strokes will show up very visibly. If you want to get rid of those strokes, very quickly take another brush, like this fine-haired hake brush, and gently fluff the surface. That'll level out any of those overly noticeable strokes. Almost immediately, the paper will start to buckle as it absorbs the moisture from the water-based gesso. Given enough time, this should dry entirely flat. Keep in mind that it'll dry flat if you're using an adequate weight of paper, like 140 pound, and if the paper's not too large. This works really well with 5x7, 6x9, 8x10, or 9x12 sheets. It can take at least an hour, maybe 2, for this to dry completely and get flat as a drum. But the method isn't foolproof. Sometimes you're into the drying quite a ways and you start to realize that it's not going to dry out flat completely. In that case, I use this little trick. It's a little awkward to use, but it works really well. You can lift the tape up, and here again it's really good to have it on the canvas panel because the tape comes off easily. And what you do is you simply push and press with your hand. You lift the board up so you're getting a little bit of a curve. You press out. It's like stretching a canvas, only you're doing it with the paper with the palm of your hand. By this time, the gesso's quite dry enough so you're not like going to get gesso on your hand. And just by doing that, I've already gotten out some really big wrinkles. Sometimes you can lift a corner and do the same thing. You flex the board, push, stretch, and then let go, and it tightens up. If you do that a few times in the necessary spots, you'll definitely get the paper drying flat as a drum. Once the paper is dry, give it a very light sanding with some very fine grit paper. That's all, very light with a grit of about 220 or 300. Then carefully remove the tape, taking care not to tear the part of the paper that is not gessoed. But it should come off pretty easy. And there you're good to go. You can slip this into any art pack and carry your papers with you. Another option is to use a watercolor block. What's great about these is that the paper is sealed all around on the edges, so you don't need to tape it down to a board as we just saw. You can just gesso the entire surface. It'll buckle a little bit, and then in a couple of hours it'll dry flat. And once it's dry, you go in with a knife and you insert it and then proceed to slice the sheet off. And then you're ready to gesso the next sheet.